This is Bruce Friedman of Adult Site Broker, and welcome to Adult Site Broker Talk, where each week we interview one of the movers and shakers of the adult industry, and we give you a tip on buying and selling websites. This week we'll be talking to adult industry writer Ralph Grecco. Adult Site Broker is proud to announce the launch of our new website at adultsitebroker.com. We've added some enhancements to the site, such as FAQs and a complete new platform. The look and feel of the new site are nice and up to date. The new site also has links to our marketplace and affiliate program. Plus, don't forget ASB Marketplace, the first platform where you can buy and sell adult sites and domains for free. ASB Marketplace allows buyers and sellers the chance to come together on properties that are valued below our company's minimum of $50,000. Don't pay for other marketplaces when ASB Marketplace gives you this service for free. Visit asbmarketplace.com and sign up as a seller or as a buyer today. And of course, there's ASB Cash, the first affiliate program for an adult website brokerage, where you can earn as much as 20% of our broker commission referring sellers and buyers to us at Adult Site Broker. Check out asbcash.com for more details and to sign up. Now let's feature our property of the week that's for sale at Adult Site Broker. We're proud to introduce for sale a transgender tube site with over 120,000 unique visitors daily. The site is a custom-built tube. Videos are encoded at a very high quality. There are 4 grades of video. It will auto-adapt to the best quality based on the user's connection. Premium quality and downloads are only available to members who have a paid account. The site script can take a lot of traffic, with the current server only being at 5 to 10% load. The site consists of user-uploaded content. There are over 30,000 videos, and retention rate is 85%. Only $274,000. Next Monday on the Hanky Panky podcast, Coral and Jewel will interview Eric Monti, an adult industry actor from the golden era who went from a social studies teacher to a porn performer. You can find the Hanky Panky podcast at hankypankypodcast.com and wherever fine podcasts can be heard. Now time for this week's interview. My guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk is adult industry writer Ralph Grecco for his second appearance on our podcast. Ralph, thanks for being with us again today on Adult Site Broker Talk.
Thanks for having me again. It's wonderful to be here.
It is great to have you again. Now, Ralph Grecco Jr. is a professional writer of blogs, columns, reviews, interviews, fiction, poetry, songs, SEO copy. I'm going to run out of breath here. And one-act plays for both mainstream and adult clients. Ralph's short fiction, poetry, and essays have been published in 8 countries in major market magazines and small press, in various anthologies and single-author short story collections. Ralph's one-act plays have been published in a complete collection as well as produced across the U.S. His self-penned, self-produced Salacious Songs and Dirty Words theater show, love that name, has been performed off-Broadway in New York City. In fact, it was so off-Broadway, the theaters were almost in Jersey. Ralph is also an ASCAP licensed songwriter and recording artist, and with fellow writer M. Christian, teaches classes across the U.S. at kink conventions, not convection ovens. Now, Ralph's new music site can be found at ralphgreccomusic.com, and his podcast is titled Licking Non-Vanilla. Now, Ralph, I'm sure during the quarantine, people just assume your clients would be needing more content and copy than they ever have before. Have you found that to be the case?
I don't know. I mean, both types of clients, mainstream and adult, seem to, it seems to be split. You know, some people certainly wanted to up their content, and they came out of the woodwork to do so, and that's on both sides of the coin. But
sure.
And others not. A lot of people certainly initially, I would say in the first 6 months or so, circled the wagons, so to speak, and said, we don't even know what's going to be happening here, so we're not sure. So I found maybe it's loosening up a little bit now, but I found both things happening. Soliciting some new clients that were jumping on board immediately, and then others that said, "No, I have to take a step back because we don't really know what's going to happen."
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when it comes to your fiction writing, are you incorporating the pandemic into it, or just pretty much ignoring it?
That's a tough one. I'm having a hard time. There's a series or a couple of science fiction pieces that I've been writing, and I've been trying to, and they take place either now or in the near future, and
Hmm.
I'm having a hard time with how to incorporate that, if I want to incorporate it at all.
Hmm.
In some instances, I mean, some essays that I'm writing these days, if they have a little bit of a political bent to them, or a cultural bent, what they usually do,
Right.
or the blogs, it's impossible to ignore what's happening right now in those instances. But
Hmm.
um, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the pandemic queering the fiction at this point. I'd rather ignore it,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of
Wouldn't
pieces
wouldn't we all?
yeah, right, right. There's a lot of pieces that I have that I'm not finished with yet,
Right.
and it just doesn't fit in there. So
Right.
I'm gonna be. I don't know. It's so you can't, like you just said, you can't ignore it. But at the same time, I like to feel that I could create worlds that, not even worlds other than this our own, but worlds where it's kind of a hyper reality where maybe certain things just don't exist at the moment. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Sometimes fiction is a lot nicer than reality. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
certainly. Yeah.
Now, are there any trends in content that you see people needing and wanting more of recently because of the pandemic?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if anything's actually changed, other than before you and I have talked about this off the air, and on the air, of course, too, there's a niche quality to what we do in the adult world. There's certainly more vanilla mainstream stuff, and then very niche stuff.
Hmm.
If I see anything that's been coming across recently, and this may or may not be because people have more time to sit down and really concentrate on what they want, what they're looking for,
Hmm.
and maybe go deeper into the rabbit hole of that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I think that it seems, in my little corner of the world, that niche content seems to be on the rise a little bit,
Mm.
more than just regular, good old vanilla.
Okay.
So I would say, but then again, that could just be a fait accompli in my world, because it's kind of the stuff I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So I may be looking for that, not even realizing that I make that happen anyway.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. So lately, you managed to place a good amount of nonfiction for outlets like Killing Kittens and The Lingerie
Mhm.
Addict that are not
Yes.
only run by women, but are buying content that features or is centered around a feminine perspective. Now, how does a
Yes.
hetero guy like you write about such things?
Well, it's because I'm so evolved.
Hmm.
Um, that's what. No, I get.
You're woke. All right. I like it.
Yeah. I'm so woke. I want to go back to sleep. That's how woke I am. I don't know. I think it's the same as anybody writing anything from possibly a perspective you don't specifically have.
Right.
But I think we all share a certain sensibility of what we want and need and desire, and you don't, like, I remember Bradbury saying that, and I'm so no way comparing myself, but
Mhm.
Bradbury said a long time ago, that whole axiom about, write what you know, right? And he
Yeah,
said,
absolutely.
but he had never been to Mars, but one of his celebrated works is the Martian Chronicles, and
Mm.
he just put the idea of loss and prejudice and desire and
Mhm.
memory and all that kind of stuff into those characters and into those stories that happen to take place on Mars. So
Hmm.
I guess what I'm saying is, we all, although I'm not a hetero woman, and I don't play one on television.
Nor
I
nor did
think
nor
that,
did you stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
right, exactly. um, I think that what it comes down to is that you kind of, The things I don't know, and I don't even try to stretch and make believe I do know. I wouldn't even assume that,
Sure.
But I think there are shared experiences that we all have, and just you write kind of what you know what to that point, and then what you don't know, you either don't write or you admit you don't know, in kind of a as entertaining a way as possible. And those places that you mentioned seem to like the stuff. So I very, very, I haven't written, as we're speaking now, I haven't written, I'm writing the article for Lingerie Addict. The other, I started with killing kittens, and the editor there is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I can't, I was talking to somebody the other day about having a great editor means the world.
Sure.
And she's just wonderful. And I actually did ask her a question the other day about perspective, because I just want to make sure I was tweaking it correctly. And she claims it was doing it fine. So I guess I'm on the right track. But, if it ain't broke, it ain't woke. It ain't broke, don't fix it, and don't wake it up. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, I think. So a long answer to your question. Sorry,
okay.
But that's where I'm coming.
Be as long as you want. We don't have it. We don't have a time limit here. Now, despite this, do you still find some female editors, or those identifying as female? Can't forget about that. Not wanting to publish stuff for male writers during the Me Too era.
That it's such a loaded idea and question, right? Because even before that whole thing, I would like to think I just walked around and was respectful to everybody, So that was always my perspective. I didn't think too much about. Yeah, I just was always just figured I treated people the way I want to be treated, right? That was kind of like golden rule. I figured that kind of works. So that said, I don't know if people are more aware. I have certainly felt a bit of that. I've certainly felt a bit of caution, I should say. I felt it in my everyday life.
Yeah.
And I felt it in my professional life. A kind of I don't know if you feel it, but and I know that people don't like to talk about that because they think sometimes they think that's a negative to talk about that, but it's the reality of the situation.
Well, the only time in this industry I felt it is when there was a women and adult meeting at one of the shows, and I walked in and said, "Hey, what's going on here?" And they basically told me to get the fuck out. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, these things always take on a wide pendulum swing, right? I mean, whatever there's any kind of change or and revolution, or there's always a wide pendulum swing, and then what happens with that usually is that if you just if you have a question, or you like what you just said, or you walk into a situation and you just kind of whatever happens to be, there's always a little bit of a blowback. My whole thing about any of this, I don't care what it is I think we should always be able to ask the question, whatever that question may be, and not be instantly labeled one thing or another because we asked the question.
Right.
But beyond that, I'm sure that there are. We were talking about circling the wagons before. I'm sure there are certain places that, for whatever reason, are circling the wagons and becoming more inclusive. Why they think they are becoming more exclusive. I think they're becoming more inclusive because of some sort of a bristling against something. So I just try to be with the approach. We were talking about this before with the approach to just people in general and business in general, and I don't care what business it is. I just try to be as open as possible and say, this is what I do and this is who I am. And if you don't like either of those things, that's okay. We don't have to work together. It doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It's just that's fine. But I've been very, very lucky so far or just fortunate so far to everybody I've come across. Doesn't matter gender or what it is. Everybody seems to be open and giving me a chance as much as they give them a chance. So that's all you can ask for, right? Right.
And if you knew the joker that I am, I walked into that meeting on purpose, knowing I was going to get thrown out of my ear. So anyway,
I'm like you. I lead with the wry, aside.
Don't be too serious. Don't be too serious. I mean, life is too serious already.
Yeah, and I'm taking the piss out of myself first before I take it out of anybody. I'm
Right.
first and foremost to be, self-deprecating, and
Sure.
I
Sure.
always like to walk into a situation and cut it down to size quickly, so everybody could just take a breath. But and I think that's the performer side of me. Like
Yeah.
I get up on stage and I have to be able to deliver. So sometimes you
Sure.
have to put an audience at ease.
Right.
And but I agree with you. I wish everybody would just take a step back a little bit and take a breath and realize,
Exactly.
we're all just trying to get through this, man.
Oh, ain't that the truth? By the way, you're a writer. You spend
Yeah.
a lot of your life writing. How much of your life do you spend reading?
Almost an equal amount, if not
Really?
more.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's funny when Chris and I do the writing classes. You were talking about the classes we teach. We teach a lot of writing classes at the conventions, and which are by far our favorite classes to teach.
Yes, you mentioned that. Yeah.
And the best thing about that is usually what we do is just we came to the conclusion the best thing to do was to have a little bit of an outline, but to just start the classes with anybody have a question, and then usually the class just goes from questions. But anyway,
right.
The number one thing I get asked all the time is, how do I do this? How do I write? How do I start? How do I do this? And I always say, I hate to say this, but this is the only thing I can tell you. I have two pieces of advice. One is, well, you got to start writing. That's the only way to do it, right? And then the second piece of advice I always say is you should be reading a hell of a lot. You should be marinating in great writers and even bad writers and everything you get your hands on, comics and recipes and novels. I don't care what it is.
Right.
So you just said, how much do I read? That's kind of all I do. That's what reading has really, really infected and infused and probably saved my life more than anything else I know.
Interesting.
It's really, really important. And I've been reading since my mom's a big reader. So she said when I was a little kid, I would sit in the room with her and have a book propped up in front of me. I couldn't read, but I was imitating her reading, And then I became a reader, but I've always been quite a voracious reader. So
I was never much of a reader, but starting a few years ago, I would say probably when Trump got into office, because there was so much political stuff I wanted to read, and all of it was just so incredibly outrageous. I started to download books onto my Kindle app on my iPad, and I haven't stopped. And now I read every night pretty much. And so, it's I love it. I absolutely love it. But it's amazing that it took me to almost age 60 to really start. And now reading all kinds of stuff, including the stuff that I enjoy the most, like, books about sports and books about jazz. But, which are the things are some of my passions, but I just read all kinds of stuff now, and it's just really cool.
Yeah. It opens your life to in a way that I don't know if any other art form can do that for you, because visual, the visual in movies are extremely important to me, and music, of course, but there's something about reading because you have to form what you're reading. You have to form your own pictures of that, and I think that stretches your imagination and vocabulary to a place that just knows no bounds,
Yeah, well, it's kind of like sports on radio versus sports on television. I used to do, as I mentioned to you, I used to do sports play-by-play when I was in my younger years, and didn't really make it on any kind of a big level, but I enjoyed painting that picture for people because they couldn't see the field. They couldn't see what the players were doing, but I could. What you have to do in that instance is you have to paint a picture.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when you were just saying that, it reminded me. I remember walking into the den and my dad watching, we were talking about before off the air. We were talking about because I'm on the East Coast of the United States, big Giant fans, and Mets fans. Yeah. And I remember my dad watching Giant games on television with the sound off and listening to the radio. while watching the game because he was getting much more information from the radio than he
Yes.
was
Yes.
from the announcers on television, because on television you're looking at it.
Right.
And I was, at the first couple of times I saw that, I said, "What are you doing?" But he explained it to me. He said,
Mm-hmm.
when you listen to the radio, they're giving you a lot more of the information because they have to give you more information.
That's correct.
And
That's correct.
It was pretty cool, the marriage of the two, to see that working, and that's great. So when you just said that makes a lot of sense, because I saw that actually happen in my life, right in front of me.
Yeah. So we touched on this a bit the last time, but as opposed to how it seemed to be a few years ago when adult companies were still producing DVDs, we were seeing each other at shows, and conventions were full of talent and fans. Has it seemed to you in the past few years that our business has gotten smaller?
Yeah, I would say in some ways, as far as people are doing the one thing that, it used to be like you just said, like, we were all over the place. We would go to a convention, or everybody was kind of bopping around and doing a lot of stuff. It seems like people are focusing on the thing they do, and trying to do that well, and do it as, and get it out there as much as possible. But it seems to be, you'd get a guy that had a magazine, but he's also involved in the photography, and he was also doing this. Nowadays it seems to be like, okay, although there are people, and you actually, we have a shared mutual guest that was on your show, and I know for a fact she does a lot of different things, but it seems to be that people are working tightly on their brand, whatever that encompasses, and then they so I don't know if they're putting themselves out there that much. Although I know the Exotica conventions are happening in the United States, and presently, so I know that convention is starting, and I know I got some press on DomCon the other day, so I know those are happening. So people are out there again,
right?
But maybe they're just, but they're going out there with a very singular vision, I think, at this point, of what they're, you know.
Yeah, and on the B2B side, which I'm more in tune with, shows like TES are starting up again, and and if it wasn't for this fucking quarantine in Thailand, which I happen to be right in the middle of right now, as I mentioned to you, coming back from America, I would be in Prague because I haven't missed it in many years. But
that's cool.
Unfortunately, this September it's not going to happen. Well, it didn't happen last September, obviously, either. So I'm hoping in 2022 everything will be as back to normal as possible. But anyway, talk about a fucked up country I live in. My God. Anyway.
But last time we spoke, things were okay there, right?
Things were wonderful. The first year was amazing. And now they're losing. The government got lazy and they started giving in to business interests.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm sure plenty of cash has changed hands, which that probably includes the money that it's costing for two fully quarantined people to be sitting in a 15-day quarantine. I'm sorry, two fully vaccinated people to be sitting in a 15-day quarantine. Nice, huh?
Right.
Makes so much sense. It's all about money. Anyway, don't get me started. Okay, so it wasn't until your podcast, Licking Non-Vanilla, that you began to really deal with social media. So what have you found out from that experience, good and bad?
Well, it reiterated the one thought in my mind, which was that it can be a holy time suck, an incredible, mind candy.
Yep.
That you can just get thrown into, and talk about Alice down the rabbit hole. You can just go forever. It's like when I start searching, Emerson, Lake and Palmer YouTube videos, I'll be on YouTube forever. So
I know.
It's the same thing. So so I never dealt with it before. So what happened when we started Licking Non-Vanilla, my producer said, well, we got to get on some sort of social media, and I said, well, I'm not going to Facebook. I just can't become part of that cult. I have no desire for that. So he said, well, we can get into Twitter. I said, well, all right. So we got into Twitter, and I'll put up a blog or one of whatever the show was on that week, and then I started seeking contacts through there, and I made some contacts through there, which was good. So that's the most I do. Really, I don't get into like let me show you what I had for breakfast and put it up on Twitter.
Oh
Like that
God,
stuff.
I
That
know,
minutiae of
huh?
that. It is amazing to me. There's other places too that you and I both actually know of and are on
Hmm.
that I see like people posting stuff that has nothing to do with
Oh.
the business or whatever.
Oh, are we
And
talking? Oh, come on, let's just say it. Are you talking about XBiz?
yeah, I am talking about
Oh
experts.
God, that's my pet
And
peeve. That's my pet peeve over there, and
I
I've
got
voiced it many
I
times. And it's like, dude, if I want to get this information, I'll get it from Apple News.
it's just weird to me. It's more like, like the minutiae. And I got in trouble on there a couple times because I threw out some what I thought were wry, silly comments, and I got in trouble.
Really?
And they were like, how can you say that here? And I'm like, I said, well, first of all, I don't even know what we're talking about. Shouldn't we be talking about the business? Like,
Well, that
and
would be
what
that's kind of what we're talking about.
so it got off on the tangent, and I was like, do any of us really have time or care to be doing this about this? Like, first of all, if you want to do that, then go on Twitter or whatever you want to do. But I don't even want to do
Yeah,
that
or
on Twitter.
Facebook. Yeah, exactly.
But all right. So the answer to your question is the good and the bad. The bad is that it is what I thought it was.
Mhm.
It's just depository or a suppository. I mean, when you look at it, for just silliness and people feeling looking for affirmation. I guess
Right.
Um, and then it is a good way for me to quickly contact people if I want to, or people reaching out.
Hmm.
But I'm not monitoring it every day and say, oh, I have 300 followers. It just that just doesn't equate in my life as anything of value.
Yeah, I
Uh,
hear you.
I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon because I get to this age, you get a little bit curmudgeon. Get your bikes off my lawn kind of thing.
Uh,
But now that I've come to the party late, I realize I haven't been missing much of a party.
No, you really haven't. And I agree it's kind of a generational thing, although Facebook tends to be more our generation. But yeah, I did that game for a while and on a personal level, and I finally just canceled my account. I got blocked so many times for putting things that were totally innocent on there.
That's another.
I mean, yeah, where Facebook gives you a timeout, and when they gave me a 60-day timeout, I finally said, you know what, I'm done. I'm just done.
Yeah,
I'm
so timed out. I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah, I just canceled it. I just canceled the account, and I gotta say, I don't miss it. The people that care about me and I care about will find me on my business page. I do have a business Facebook page. I use it to promote the podcast and some listings and things like that, and Twitter and LinkedIn. But I don't go overboard either. I just can't see it. And it used to be such a time suck, man. I used to, every time I picked up my phone, I went to Facebook to see what people were saying about me or saying about Trump. And then it gets to the point where you're like, oh, fuck it, man. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's akin to, I say this to my buddy all the time. There was a point I was trying to catch the Marvel movies because I'm not a comic geek, but I like comics.
Yeah.
And I was following the movies and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then it got to a point like there was 700 or 800 of them out there or whatever, and they were in order, and you had to see the Winter Soldier before you saw this, all this bullshit. And I said to my buddy, like, and then Endgame came out, everybody was raving about it, and I said, you know what? I don't care. I just don't care anymore. Like, it's just too much of me trying to worry about what order I saw the movies in and try to remember. I'm like, I'm just not interested. Yeah. I want to live my life.
I hear.
I want to at least. I mean, that I just want to. And I love all that stuff. I love all that popcorn movies, and I dig. I like watching Gal Gadot do anything, but it got to a point where it's like, why am I chasing all this when?
Yeah, when it starts to
Endgame.
Yeah, when it starts to dominate your life, that's when you realize that it's too much. And I think probably one of the best things that Apple put on their phones is screen time. And
what's that?
It's you get a notice every Sunday how much time you spent on your phone that week. And I'll tell you,
a lot of people are paying attention.
I do, and I'll tell you, it's pretty eye-opening. I mean, it's bad enough that mine was 3 hours plus. Okay, I'll admit it.
Yeah. Okay.
But at the same time, I bet it used to be more like 8 or 6 or whatever,
So
because with Facebook.
because of that, you've cheated back a bit.
Oh God, like 50%.
Really?
Trust me. Although, I'm putting a lot of that time into sports now, which I love. Into seeing
That's
as we
interesting.
do this interview, and it's going to run in a couple months. But as we do this interview, we're on the baseball trade deadline. Well, being a big San Francisco Giants fan, we got to get which Giants correct here. Yeah, I'm like, man, I want to see who gets traded and who we get and who we give up. So anyway. Devices are good for that.
Apple developed the thing so you use Apple less.
Yeah, pretty much. It's called screen time. Absolutely. Well, yeah.
Talk about a confident company that doesn't have to worry.
That is a very confident company. You're right. And they should be confident. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying. Think about that model. They're giving a tool to regulate how much you're using their product.
It's for personal. It's for personal well-being, and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I really do. Do.
That's wild, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
because at the end of the day, they're looking to make money,
and they do.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yep. So, you're obviously not an Apple user. So, as we discussed last time, you got into the business by writing scripts for the 800 and 900 phone sex lines back in the day. Wow.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah. So surely things have progressed in script writing over the years. Just a little bit. But do you find opportunities to write scripts much anymore? And if not, why do you think that might be?
I don't. And I think the reason is that what we were saying before about how the business has changed a bit. People are playing it close to the vest. So I think if you have a performer, a lady performer who's doing her own content, and there's some great women out there doing some great content.
Yes.
Have their own little studios and putting clips up for sale. And I'm fans and friends with a few, but fans of more. And I would say a lot of them are doing it themselves.
Yeah,
they're putting a script. They're putting a crew together, a small crew, and they're putting scripts together themselves. They know enough how to do it, and that's what's happening. So I don't think people are. Occasionally, I'll get some sort of the guidelines or somebody looking for a script, and I'll write them, and then I don't get a hit back. And it's not, it could just be me as well. But I tend to think that people start that, and then they realize, you know what, I don't need to get a writer in here. I could just do this myself.
Sure. Well, the clip and fan sites are certainly dominating the industry now, without a doubt.
Yeah. I don't know. When's the last time you've seen a movie that's really been more than 23 minutes, if that? I think that's the biggest, the longest things I've seen now.
There's some producers that still put a story into their stuff, and those are the people that, if you want script work, those are the people you should be working with.
Right, that are the people I seek out. But again, those people are, everybody. If you get to that point, at this point, you probably have a good crew around you, and the go-to people.
Maybe
go-to people.
Maybe.
But look, I'm always. Hey, look, I'm looking. So if anybody wants to contact me, I'm always looking.
There you go. Well, so what does the scene look like at the kink conventions you teach at? Now they're starting up again. Obviously, we talked about that. Are they populated, and do you think they're going to stand the test of time?
Well, I just did a piece for Kinky magazine. So that's KINK. Anyway, give them a little shout out. And I had to interview some people about that very subject. Okay. And it seems like there is a return. There's a group I know in St. Louis that I know pretty well, and Chris and I have taught there quite a bit, and they seem to be going full steam ahead with at least 2 events a year, back to their 2 event a year schedule. So, and like I said, Exotica's open again. Exotica does not have any kind of COVID restriction that I know of. I know the convention, the Kink convention, you have to be vaccinated. So, because in those instances, of course, people are getting very close together. They're getting reach out and beat someone, basically. And so
I like that.
But so those guys are starting up again. I haven't seen much call for. There's a couple other conventions I know of. DomCon, like we were just saying, is happening.
Right.
So the other ones I don't know, but it seems the ones that are have done enough research and have enough together that they know how they want to move forward. And they are moving forward.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, in doing adult writing, have you ever had those moments when you feel just want to write about vanilla sex, or just maybe get out of the business altogether?
I don't know if there's not a get out. There was never a moment where it was get out, but there are those moments where I'm like, I have to step back from this for a week because my perspective is getting colored all by robot spanking stories, and after a while, it's just there's just so much of that. So, and that's why I have multiple projects open at once. And I say open, I mean on my desktop that I can go to. So I'm constantly flipping it back and forth. So I'm writing an article about chastity, which I'm doing right now. I'm writing an article about chastity, but I'm also doing work for a local company that does air duct cleaning in your house. So I'm going back and forth, and so I'm constantly keeping that fire going. So those fires going, so I don't get bored by either one. But there are times the only thing I seem to have to take a break from is certainly the erotica writing, because that really is very intense as far as the things you're talking about, things you're writing about, and conjuring. I have to take a step back from that on many occasions, just to give myself a little bit of a break. That's all.
Understood. Now, the last time we spoke, we also touched on your music career. When we talked before, the site was fairly new. Maybe you can tell us more and give us a little bit of an update.
Well, it's nothing to update at the moment. What I'm trying to do now is, because I can't physically go to the studio.
Right.
So I'm going to do as much as I can. I'm working on, and it's pretty easy because easy is a relative term, but I have a because nowadays technology is such that digital recorders you can hold in your hand.
Yes.
So
it's called a mobile phone.
Yeah. Right. Well, but there's a Zoom recorder that's a professional recorder that I can get great guitar and vocal sounds, and then I will throw that out to my engineer. Co-producer and engineer, and via email. Right. And there are, luckily, the projects that I'm working. He has a couple songs for me that he's working on now, they have a lot more instrumentation. But the things that I want to work on immediately are four projects, and they're all just acoustic guitar, and the vocals are just acoustic guitar. So that's four different projects. So it's not a lot. There's not a lot of production involved. So I can do. I guess what I'm saying is I can do most of that recording myself.
That's cool.
I just have to do it. and therein lies the rub.
How many hours in the day, right? So what are your future plans for your podcast, Looking Non-Vanilla?
We're just trying to increase the reach and listenership and get on, bigger and better, and that's a relative term, as you well know, guests. And we've had some great. Across the board, I've had some great people on, but just because someone has a big following doesn't mean they're going to be a great guest, as you well know.
You're absolutely right.
And just because someone has a great following doesn't mean that their followers are going to follow you.
Yes.
So it's really a craft. I don't know how you find it, but for me, for Chris and I, it's certainly a crapshoot on feeling out who you want to have on, or publicists get touch with you and you bandy about the guest or not. So it's how it is. It's very, very hard to.
I do. I'm recruiting. I'm recruiting guests every day. I'm putting feelers out every day. I see a news story and I go, God, that person would be a great guest.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes they don't end up being a great guest.
It's all good.
And I put the blame on myself. I'm like, well, I didn't ask them the right questions and I didn't have the right the right thing up to speed or whatever it is. But there are times when I'm like, they're just not great communicators, and that's not everybody is. Not everybody is.
Not everybody can talk. Not everybody can talk well. Absolutely
not. Everybody
not.
is as scintillating as you and I, you know. but you know,
hey, we're talkers, buddy. We're talkers.
I think we are. Yeah, I think that's true. I think
an Italian and a Jew. Who would figure? Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. What do they say? What's the joke about that? Same corporation, different division.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
right.
and there's, I'm sure in New York, there's a finer line from my experience. So anyway, so what writing projects are you currently working on, and what do you see coming in the near future?
Okay, well, I have a memoir that I hopefully get done and published. I have a publisher.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that would have to be anonymous because it's a little dirty and it's a little, you know.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Do I get a copy?
Sure. I said you would.
Love it.
That's why I make no money. I just send them out. What else? The music projects, and then I have a book about music that I've been working on for a long time. And then, you know, all the other, you know, there's a couple of things in the wings, but that's the problem. I have, you know, whatever it is, BLT or EDT or ELP or ADD, I don't know, ADD. I don't have that, but I feel like I do because I bounce around for so many things so much.
BLT, yeah, you definitely have BLT for lunch, right?
I have BTO or ELP, ELO, but that's how you bounce around so much. Yeah. So that's the whole thing. So, but that's what I'm hoping to get to within, you know, the next couple, you know, just keep going until the next couple of months here, you know, and then whatever else comes in, any projects come in, you know, I'm certainly open to everything, you know, basically.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Ralph, once again, I'd like to thank you for being our guest today on Adult Side Broker Talk. And I hope we'll be able to do round 3 in the not too distant future. My broker tip today is part 6 of how to buy an adult website. Last week, we talked about the sales agreement. So now both you and the seller have signed the agreement. What comes next? There needs to be an escrow set up where you send the money, whether it be a one-time payment or a deposit if you're going to be making payments. This is done about half the time these days. The seller, for their part, puts the assets of the sale into escrow, namely the domains being sold and any other tangible assets that can be put into escrow. Your attorney can give you more information on that. We recommend escrow domains for escrows. They're a firm out of Washington, D.C., and no, they're not paying me to say this. I just use them, trust them, and am delighted by the work they've done for us. Either an escrow agreement will be drawn up by them in the case of a custom escrow, or if it's a simple one, it can be set up on their website. Then you, the buyer, the seller, and the broker will be contacted by escrow domains with further instructions, such as wiring information. The escrow is opened, and either the deal closes within a matter of a few days, or an inspection period is allowed. It all depends on what the agreement calls for. Whether you need an inspection period really depends on whether there is still some information you need to find out prior to the deal closing. Your broker and your attorney can advise you more on this, and it's on a case-by-case basis. Then the money is transferred, as are all the domains, and the deal is closed. Now, in many cases, in fact, most of the time, the seller either stays on board for a period of time to help with the transition, or is at least available on an on-call basis to answer questions. This is something most buyers should ask for. But at this point, you pretty much own the website. What do you do now? We'll talk about that more next week. And next week, we'll be talking to professor and author Edward Shorter. And that's it for this week's Adult Site Broker Talk. I'd once again like to thank my guest, Ralph Grecco. Talk to you again next week on Adult Site Broker Talk. I'm Bruce Friedman.